This week's episode is another in the mini series where I'm talking about embodying your design and talking to people who are embodying their design or engaging in their own unique personal human design experiment. And today's guest is somebody who I have known for a really long time, but who have not had the chance to have a deep dive conversation with in a very long time. So this episode is a little bit longer than anticipated, or as than I expected it to be. And I initially afterwards was like, oh gosh, is this going to be really boring for people? Or should we have stuck to the original time, especially after the one before? I was like, I'm going to rein it in. I'm going to get better. So I'd love your feedback. Are you enjoying these episodes? How are you finding these deep dives where we're really looking at people embodying their design? Yeah, let me know what you think. Today's guest is a people photographer that captures the light in people. Started out as a documentary, wedding, family moments, and party photographer. She is now really working in brand photography. The silver lining of the global house arrest in 2020 led her to discovering brand personality photography and working more with business owners and online entrepreneurs. She is Charlie Brown, and in this episode, we are talking about embodying your design with Charlie Brown.
You are listening to Adulting with Ebony. Season 7 brings together neurodiversity, human design and embodiment so that Gen X or millennial misfits and late diagnosed neurospices become empowered, embodied and fully expressed. This is the show where I actively encourage you to feel your feelings rather than think them. Glow up, not grow up, and become full of yourself. Because who the fuck else should you be full of? Each week, I have real and raw conversations about what it takes to be fully resourced and have happy, healthy, intimate relationships as a dopamine-deficient adult wanting to create a better future by being the change that you want to see in the world. I am your host, Ebony Allard, aka Ebony Alchemy, a late diagnosed ADHDer, combined type and Asperger's in case you like specifics, artist, mystic, and self-actualization facilitator. I'm an international award-winning multiple brain integration technique master coach with special interest in embodied human design for neurodivergence. I've been in the personal development, creativity, and entrepreneurship spaces all of my life. And as a 5/2 emotional manifesting generator with a left angle cross of distraction, I am here to help you know what to trust and what to tune out. Each week, I share relatable, practical ways that mean you get to take less responsibility for more reward and safely remove your camouflage for more belonging, acceptance, and fulfillment. Ready? Let's go.
Charlie, I'm
Hello.
really excited about this conversation because of all my guests in this mini series where we're talking about embodying your design. These cards aren't a surprise to you. You've spent a whole day with them already.
Yeah, what beautiful cards they are. You should be so proud.
Thank you. I was saying to the last guest I had on that I almost forgot that I needed to launch them. Gone to the next thing already and was like, yeah, so that's done. So what's the next program? And my team, luckily, I now have, a wonderful support team that's maybe taken 10 years to find the right people who are like, space and air to the thing that you've created. Like, acknowledge it. Isn't that one of your pillars? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Do you get this with your work though? It's quite, you just did it. I mean, I just did it. It's not
Well,
like
exactly.
it's not
Yeah.
a thing.
I suppose so, actually. You when it's your own thing, you can't see the wood for the trees, can you? What was that? You can't see the label when you're inside the bottle, but you're just busy creating and not really thinking about the fact that you should be giving yourself a pat on the back and taking a breather as well before you get on to the next chapter.
Yeah, and that piece of when you're really embodying your design, it gets to be easy. That doesn't mean that it didn't take time and there wasn't intention and there wasn't effort or focus or whatever. But this is what I do to relax, right? Like this is what I do. Like the bit, I think the synthesizing of information bit, like I can acknowledge I've done some work there. But genuinely, I spend a lot of my time going, do you think other people will think I've plagiarized them? To Shari, like, and all of my friends all the time, like, do you think people think I'm, I mean, none of it's original. And so I freak out about that a lot on the inside. And then the images where people are like, the pictures are really pretty. I'm like, I mean, they're just me doodling. I used to get told off at school for that. And so it is really fascinating to look at what, like, things flow and they're easier when we're embodying our design. And we often have so much conditioning about it shouldn't be that easy, or I
Oh,
don't deserve
definitely.
to get acknowledged for that. And, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
I think for me as a photographer, the fact
Yeah.
that I find it so easy made it really difficult for me initially for pricing, because I thought, well, I do this for, like you say, do this for fun anyway. And we just think that it can't be that easy from conditioning, like you say.
Mm.
You've got to work hard. Well, no, how about you just are dedicated and it can be easy for
Mm.
sure.
I love that you use the word dedicated. I was looking at some of your design, and actually, I think I didn't choose to pull that when I was pulling cards out because you have spent a whole day with them. So I guess, first of all, for people listening, what is your design from a human design lens?
So I'm a generator 6'2",
Mhm.
and it's really opened up so much for me, sort of learning about what that means.
Mm.
So as a 6'2" profile, I always kind of felt like a bit of a walking contradiction, like I was an introvert and an extrovert.
Yeah.
I was, what is it, an ambivert or an ambivert? And sometimes I would just sort of give myself a bit of a hard time if I didn't want to be around my friends, because I'm like, well, you love them. But now I know that I am supposed to retreat and take that time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as part of that 2 profile, things are supposed to come to me easily, and I'm meant to have a natural talent.
Yeah.
It's made me realize that the paths that I'm choosing in life are supposed to be fun and easy, and I am supposed to have fun with it. And the whole get a real job thing doesn't apply to me. It's supposed to be fun, and I'm supposed to play with it. I think I've also been really grateful in the fact that the way that I was raised, my predominant environment growing up was completely supported. Like when I was looking at my conscious sun and earth and unconscious sun and earth, when I was going through the cards with you on Thursday, I was like, all of this was supported in me as a child. Like, I'm self-created joy. Like, I came from a household that was referred to as the laughter house by my neighbours, and my mum and my nan really just allowed me to be me and to be free, and there was never any pressure. So those gates were completely nurtured from such a young age. And actually, I probably had the reverse of conditioning to deal with, because I then went out into the real world where everyone's a bit battered and bruised and was like, oh God, I don't know what's going on here. And with an open emotion center, took on all of that and then kind of retreated a little bit, not really knowing how to navigate the world. And I now feel like I've kind of come full circle in, oh, okay, so that foundation that was built in me as a child, I can now go back to that. Yeah, it's been life changing learning about it.
So, generator, mastery, repeating, lit up, all of those things, can totally see that in you. Authority, how was it to discern, particularly, and we'll go into your centers in a minute, because you have only 2 undefined centers, and they're not just undefined, they are open.
Yeah, and they
And
feel
those
very
2,
open.
yeah, well, so they're completely, well, so open rather than undefined, so they have no
Yeah,
definition in them, and they are your emotional center, which you just said, solar plexus, which makes you a sacral authority, and at your head.
yeah,
So the 2 places where very easily to get swayed by big emotion, or to feel other people's emotion amplified, and
Hmm.
also to get distracted by other people's questions or desires for you or opinions, or that kind of thing. Not so much opinions, because you've got that defined ajna, but the questions, or what you should be focusing on.
Yeah. And just generally focus in general. My mum has called me Dolly Daydream ever since I was a kid. So having that open head centre was not a surprise to me.
Mm.
And I think because I came from such a supported home life, but then had to deal with other people's emotions, it did make me quite a people pleaser to start with before I started getting into personal development and understanding that, not to take anything personally, along with the 4 agreements. That was a real big book for me. I think having the open head and the open emotions, that was difficult to navigate, almost as if I had an undefined G center, I suppose, in a way.
Which is interesting, because actually your G center is your strongest, or like,
Yeah,
then is the center of your chart with the most activity going on. So it's kind of, you
yeah,
have a really, like, your channels, bar one, all come off. Actually, that's not true. You've got quite a few channels, but you've got a lot of activity coming off that G center. So before we confuse all the people who are like, I can't see her chart and this is too, right, blah, blah, blah. My question was actually around authority, right? So rather than making decisions from your head,
mm.
popping that correct decision making into your sacral, how was that for you, and how easy is it now?
I still have to remind myself sometimes, because we were all taught to think with our heads, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it came very naturally to me. I've always been, well, I kind of used to think of it as being impulsive, but now I know it's just my sacral going, oh my God, this is what we need to do. And I was always following that. But then, like you say, hearing other people say, oh, but is that a right thing for you to do? Or should you be spending money on that? Or perhaps you should stay in that job for a little bit longer before you start your business full time. So it's learning to listen to me, my
Mm,
sacral, rather than other people, and
for
not
sure.
allow my head to get carried away.
Because that gut response, which is the sacral or the pelvic response, right, is it's not as fleeting as the spleen, but it's once, and it's not going to keep, like, you can't it's not a magic 8 ball that you can keep shaking till you get the answer you want.
Yeah.
And people do that, right?
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
also see in you, and it's not fair for those who are listening, but what I see, so the sacral response is different in everyone, because we're all completely unique. And some people it's much more throat and voice based, and some people it's much more physical. And
yeah,
in you, it's really physical. And when
yeah,
you lean forward when it's a yes, and you lean back when it's a no, and I do. So I have I'm an emotional manager, so there's more to it, like 2 more processes, whatever. But there is still that, like, lean in for a yes and lean out for a no thing, which I
yeah.
think is really interesting to observe in people.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
feel it in your own body?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's embracing it more as well, because I used to, that enthusiasm that I've got, because I didn't always see it in everybody else. Sometimes I used to dull it down a bit, like many years ago before I kind of went on the personal development journey. And that one of my gates being self-created joy as well. Like sometimes I used to think, oh, maybe I'm a bit much. I'm a bit too happy all the time. And now it's like, no, fuck it. This is me. This
Well,
is
and
what I mean
that
to be.
literally is your radiance. You were talking about that one. So we'll tap in and look at them. So first of all, let's talk about your conscious sun, because you tapped on it earlier, or you
Yeah.
alluded to it, and I was like, no, wait. So your conscious sun, it's gate 25, or code
Yes.
25, which I call the spirit of love. So it's this beautiful card. How was it for you when you first saw it? And you've had a little bit of time with it, so this isn't your first seeing of it. So yeah, tell me about what it's been like to see it.
First of all, just the cards. I need to say this first for people that haven't seen the cards. They are beautiful. Like I know you were saying, oh, it's just doodles that I used to do at school, but the feel of them, everything about them, they feel so tangible, and I feel like that then makes you step into your design more, because there's a lot to take in when you're taking human design. I was instantly excited by human design, but it's the information overload. Whereas I think when you've got something physical to be able to refer to and look at and hold, it helps you to to step into it more. So when I first saw that card, actually it resonated instantly, because what I was saying about my childhood, I was raised by the most, my mum as well, but my nan is the best human I've ever met, ever, and probably the best human that most people have ever met. Like, she was complete unconditional love, pure joy, pure radiance, and I feel like she was absolutely sent to put me on this path. So I was like, well, of course that's cool. Of course, my environment was like that, because I was embodied already as a child. So seeing that, it just, yeah, straight away rang true for me. And I think that's the thing. I did used to dampen that down, because I, years of conditioning, and when you're in your teenage years and you're trying to fit in a bit, me having that sort of feeling of love and joy within me sometimes was seen as a bit, a bit soft and a bit namby-pamby or whatever. And I did probably used to be a bit more aloof and go against my truth, basically. So, but over the years, I've been stepping into that more. And so it's been nice to have that validation of, no, that's what I'm here to be.
It really is. And also the Virgo, the Virgo in me, which is my Saturn and my Jupiter, appreciates you appreciating the details. And so every time someone's like, but they feel so good, I'm like, I know, I chose it on purpose. And like all the little details in the box and all of those little things and the gold foil, and it is my attention to detail drives people insane, because unless it's perfect, I'm like, no. And there are a couple of errors, and people keep telling me them, and I'm like, you can stop telling me them now, because it just upsets me. I don't want to know about it anymore.
But touch is part of my design as well, so I am going to notice how something feels. Like, it's very important to me.
Yeah, so they are a special mat that's like quite sheer, and they do feel really special. So
They feel like velvet in card form.
so the what was I going to say? So it's called The Spirit of Love, and it is all about universal love, and love as an energy of acceptance from the universe for us all, universally, regardless, unconditional love for all of existence. Code 20. I just found an error, of course. Says code 23. Should say code 25.
As well, but shh, doesn't matter.
You knew we spent 4 days.
I know.
4 days proofreading for two people, me and Hayley, who I adore, but both of us, it's not like ADHD is not our strong point, right?
Yeah.
Damn it. So code 25, I'm going to cross it out and write that in my book in a minute. Knows that love conquers all, and that the path to universal love is acceptance of what is. Code
Absolutely.
25 knows that both the rose and the dung heap that provided a catalyst and fertilizer are both love, beauty, innocence, and purity. We are all one, and each one is love. And yeah, so everything that you've just said is absolutely that, as is not telling me that it says code 23.
Well, I didn't know if that was one of the ones that you'd noticed. So I thought, well, we're not going to talk about it. Like,
I haven't noticed any of them. People keep sending them to me, and I'm just adding them to a list right now, because there's so much on my plate. There's nothing I can do about it. And there'll be another edition, and then all of you who have the ones with errors in get to say that you got the very first run before it was published. So it's all good. I could twist any story. So the light end, which you've described so perfectly, is all about trusting life despite many tests, creating relationships based on truthfulness and egolessness, and empowering others to love life, which I totally see in you. And is motiveless, is like loves unconditionally, totally accepting, open-hearted, living faith and innocence. And then on the shadow end, we've got this confusion when witnessing unloving acts, and the quality of loving everything universally, which can also be perceived as cold, because people are like, there's a hierarchy. You know, how can you love this stranger at the same amount as you love your nan, right? Like that you can't, that's not, and that really like,
Yeah.
goes with people's brain. And yeah, I really, because we have known each other again for a long time, and there have been iterations, and you have kind of, I don't know, become more and more yourself the longer I've known you.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, really, to see how this piece, which is in the G center and is like the very center of your being, is so clear in you.
Yeah, it feels it. And it feels it more so since learning about my design, to be honest. Now that I understand that I was perhaps influenced by other people's thoughts in the past. Because I can remember having a conversation a few years ago saying that I loved Matt unconditionally. We've been together for 21 years, and we were talking about the fact that if we were to ever split up, I would always love him unconditionally. And the person I was speaking to just couldn't understand that. They said, no, you only ever love your children unconditionally. You don't love people unconditionally. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I do.
I love that. I love that because, so this is the second time you have said something that's alluded to Gate 29. When we did the day together, can you remember looking at Gate 29? Was there anything?
No,
Okay.
29. Let me, did
Now
it
I
come
want
up with my
I'm going to look at it. I'm going
news?
to look on your chart and see if it's on there and why. Yeah, it's in your Saturn. So this is really interesting.
Okay.
No. Yes. Saturn and Gate 29. So I looked at it earlier and I was like, nah, that's not what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about all these other things, and
Oh,
we'll talk about
interesting.
you're 58 and you're 10 and la la la. Right. So Saturn is what we're here to master. And 29, the reason it came up right then, by the way, is I was like, I feel that way about certain people in my life. I'm like, it's an important relationship. And if it broke down or if it wasn't what it is now, I wouldn't stop loving them.
Absolutely.
I might not like them anymore. And I might decide, we might both have decided that the relationship as is has run its course. But I cannot see any circumstances in which I wouldn't value the experience that we've been on
Yeah.
and the time that we spent together. How could you be with someone for 20 years and then be
Yeah.
like, I don't love you anymore? Well, what about that huge chunk of your life?
I know. Exactly. Yeah, totally agree. And interestingly, he's also a 6-2 generator.
And that's nice.
Yeah.
And because I think, again, there are different types of relationship, right? There are companionable relationship, and then there's like friction relationship where you are in a relationship of polarity instead of harmony.
Yeah.
And I think some people incarnated to have a friction polarity experience, and other people incarnated to have a much more kind of side by side, we are a team, let's do
Yeah.
life together, quite companionable. And it sounds like that's more of that.
Yeah.
29 though is like for me, it's my unconscious Mars. And that is an area where our deepest wound is. And I have in the last few years really been acknowledging the places where I have this unseen half-heartedness and what it means to be the faithful devotee. And so that's what 29 is, the faithful devotee. And that is the energy for being faithful and devoted to the things that matter. Dedicated, adventurous, and hungry for new perspectives. It has great stamina for challenging situations and exemplifies readiness. Code 29 knows that commitment, faith, and devotion are magical medicine when they come from what truly lights you up, but poison when they come from obligation, fear, or as an attempt to prove your worthiness. Code 29 loves to say yes and go deep emotionally, sexually, in business, and in its studies. And that is your conscious Saturn, right? So that's the piece that you're here to master. So 29, the faithful devotee. I have that in my unconscious Mars. So it's a deep wound for me around. So the Gene Keys version of it is half-heartedness, commitment, devotion. And what that has looked like in my life is being devoted to the wrong people or the wrong things. So when you were mentioning like people pleasing earlier, like, oh, that could be like that's part of the Saturn experience for you of knowing what to be devoted to, or like being devoted to the correct things energetically and using your authority to know that.
That makes sense.
And then for me, because it's a wounded thing, like really acknowledging the places where I am half-hearted, as the Gene Keys put it, or yeah, in human design, it's saying yes or novel experiences. And so this for me as a Sagittarius moon means that I can be like, fuck this shit. It's too emotional, it's too deep, it's too complicated. Like I'm not staying. Or like you don't understand me or you don't see me or any of those things. And the Sagittarius moon in the 12th house means, and then I've also got a subtle wave. I'm the last person to see my emotions, right? But I've always been very, what you see is what you get. And in astrology, all of my chart is above the line. So you know how you get that circle and then you get a line across the middle. Every single planet is above the line except for my Venus and my Chiron. And so when it's above the line, it's visible in the sky. So it's there for everyone to see, right? And when it's below the line, that is where it's in our inner world or beyond the horizon of what we see in people. And so, yeah, really understanding how all of these languages, they're just saying the same thing, right? They might say it in a slightly different way, but they're all alluding to this experience of what it means to really be yourself and to embody those pieces. And so when I started going, okay, show me the emotions I can't see, like show me where it is that I'm being emotional or projecting my emotions on others without realizing that I'm doing it. And then along came human design with a like, so you are an emotional authority in a subtle way. You're the last one to know your, and I was like, oh, thanks. This is really helpful information, right? And that like whole thing of when the student is ready, the work appears or the master appears is so, so true. And we only get what we're available for, like what we're really ready to kind of take on.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. What else stood out to you when you were spending the day with the cards? Because we went through activation sequence, and then in the afternoon, I got you to either pick one and spend another one and spend some time with it, or there were like 3 more sequences that you can try. What did you do?
Yeah, so I've just annoyingly left my notebook downstairs with the rain.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the activation sequences because I hadn't kind of looked at that side of my chart much before. I
Mm.
dabbled a little bit, but it was interesting to see what that brought out.
Mm.
I can't remember off the top of my head now though, because I've left my notebook downstairs. Do you want me to
Oh,
go and
don't
get
worry.
it or?
No, don't worry.
Yeah.
I was there anything that was from that experience that really stood out to you as like, oh, I'd never seen it that way before, or that makes absolute sense to you, to me.
I remember a lot of it making sense. There was a couple of cards that popped up that I couldn't see in me. I
Mm.
can't remember what they were now. I know that, for example, within my unconscious, I'm not, is it 52 or 58?
So in
Uh,
your unconscious, you've got 58 as your sun,
yes.
and that is to do with your radiance and your health, right? And
Mhm.
then you've got your 52, which sits underneath it, which is all about like stillness, really, and like not moving, being the mountain of equanimity. So we can look at them both, but that 58 um is a really interesting one. So it's the joyful, and code 58 is all about the source of joy and vitality. Joy is an orientation, vitality, bliss, and the deepest satisfactions are available just by being alive. Code 58 enjoys and embraces life with all its facets and stimulation, seeing what needs to be corrected and optimized to experience more joy and vitality in life. It makes the correction and keeps on moving. Code 58 knows that joy comes from within. Meeting any dissatisfaction head on, it trusts that doing so is what yields vitality and finds the joy in that.
Yeah.
And it's dissatisfaction, vitality, and bliss. And because it's your unconscious sun and your radiance, this is what you are, your vehicle, your presence unconsciously brings into a space. Whereas the 25 is like your mind, is your awareness, is like you're conscious that that's what you contribute, that's what you're bringing, it's what your sun is, what you shine a light on. Whereas the 58 is it's what you unconsciously bring into a space. And when you find that you are dissatisfied or really like in a place of potentially like criticizing other people or feeling pessimistic or being quite a perfectionist, that means that you've leaked your power, and you get to then use 52 to really ground back into yourself and call your power back to you. And so that 52 is the mountain of equanimity, which is all about stillness, presence, concentration, and timing. Focus and rest are very powerful. Concentrating on the things that capture its interest, it retreats. Inner stillness, this is your 2, right?
Yeah.
And deep focus allows for the larger context to emerge and a perfectly peaceful way forward to be found. Code 52 knows that there's no need for busyness. There is a season and a time for ebb and for flow. With faith in divine timing and trust in itself to act when the time is right, it can simply enjoy the details. And these two, 58 is Capricorn and 52 is Cancer. And so you're bringing this kind of pragmatic joy to situations. But when you find yourself being kind of critical or self-critical probably, or a perfectionist about things and wondering and just being very pessimistic about the world and finding no joy in any of it, then it's really time to retreat and be still and be alone and take yourself into your kind of hermit crab shell, right? And be a little insular and potentially emotional as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now that you've explained it like that, actually. But then that's where your expertise lie. Every time I hear you explain anything, it's like, oh yeah. Because the 52, I wasn't quite sure I saw, but I do now that you've said that.
I love the 52. I like to tease the person. There's a couple of people in my world who have it, and I like to tease them that they are an immovable mountain. They never go anywhere when I want them to move. And I think that there is, interestingly, that one's Cancer, because I always think of it as Capricorn and they're on the same axis, right? But actually it's so interesting how these axes can work together, because on the inside, it's not that you are being stubborn as a goat, it's that you are enjoying the moment, like the retreat, the inner stillness, your own company, just lying on the mountain and watching the breeze or feeling the breeze or observing the clouds or the butterflies. So it actually feels very Cancer-like, right? Delicate and young and youthful. Whereas on the outside, it can be like, why are you not moving? Why are you being still? But it's in that stillness that you will then really connect with your sense of timing and your trust in yourself and your trust in the world, and that joy will return again for you. And that, in the sequence that we did and the way that this kind of works as an activation, that's your purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I am a super busy person as well, so I've seen that in me since sort of understanding more about my design, that that retreat is necessary
Mm.
regardless of what other people think, because it looks out of character for me to suddenly be hiding away, not wanting to speak to anybody.
Mm.
Um, but it feels right to do so. So I've definitely been honouring that.
Mm. I think the other thing with the two, whether it's 5-2, 6-2, or 2-4, whatever it is it is the natural, but it's also the hermit, and it is a projection field, and so the 2 line often can't see itself,
Yeah,
and so it needs that it needs some reflection. And when you have, like, you have an open emotional center, a lot of the time what you'll be experiencing is other people's emotions amplified, but that doesn't mean that you don't have your own emotion, right?
yeah,
It's not that you don't feel emotion. I think this is often really misunderstood. Actually, emotional undefined emotional centers, particularly open ones like yours, are often more emotional
oh God, yeah,
because they've not just got their own consistent wave. They're like everyone is making me cry. Everything is making me cry. This moon is making me cry, like all of the things. And so actually really giving yourself time to empty yourself out of everybody else is really important for you.
yeah, totally. And again, something that I've noticed ever since I was a child, I've always been super emotional.
And it might then take somebody else to be like, I think you need some time to feel your feelings. I know. And that can be really difficult for us when other people are, and then we're like, yeah, you're right, actually, you know. And it's
Yeah,
one of the things that I love about human design is that we are like going through it and starting with this experiment, because it is an experiment, we get to embody it and have a go, is one, you can't help but fall more in love with yourself and be fascinated by what you find. And two, you realize that we're all interconnected and we're supposed to support and enable each other and kind of live in this beautiful synarchy, not
yeah,
be a little island on our
yeah,
own.
absolutely. I think I've felt that more from learning about all the different designs, that
Mm.
we are all one piece of a very big puzzle, and that we're all here to support each other in different ways. That
Mm.
was really kind of empowering thing to realize.
Mm. Yeah, how was that at the event that I hosted? Was because there were lots of different types there, right? Like a real range. Not, I think we had 2 reflectors, a whole bunch of
My
projectors.
first reflector, I was very excited.
Yeah, I tend to, because of the misfit thing, maybe collect people who have a lot of open centers, but
Yeah,
also who are 2 lines, and so don't love to spend loads of time with other people. But did you learn anything about other types, or did you hear anything you were like, oh, that's really like different?
yeah, definitely. So with reflectors, I was always fascinated, thinking that they perhaps, I don't know, kind of led life with a lot of confusion. But I realised that their definition comes from the gates that they've got, that they still have definition. They just don't have anything within the energy centres.
Yeah.
I had a lovely conversation with a lady that we had the same conscious sun and conscious earth, so
Yeah.
that was great. And I think that's the thing as well. When you look at the design types and realise the smaller percentage, like the manifestors, projectors, reflectors, it must be so nice for them to realise that they're not supposed to be bouncing around with all the energy that the gens and the mani gens have got. That we've all got a part to play, and it's going to come with different levels of energy. So it was just nice to sort of speak with other people on how they've been finding learning about their design.
Mm. And I think it is really fascinating. So one of the people that I spoke to today has the same incarnation cross as somebody else I know who I'm seeing next week. And this person was a projector or is a projector, and the other person is a generator. And they have very similar, both four in their profile, but so very, like, you know, quite similar, also couldn't be more different. And when you spend some time with it and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how these energies through the filter of this person is being expressed. And so, you know, it's, yeah, people often say to me, like, but doesn't that mean I'm the same as somebody else? I'm like, no, because you've got all of your energy, but then you've also got how you respond to it.
Yeah.
And that thing that you just said of, so I always thought the more open centers you had, or if you didn't have a defined sacral, you would have low energy to start with. And then I met hundreds of people with open centers and reflectors and projectors and manifestors. And that piece around, so if we talk about your emotional center is open, your solar plexus. Is it that you have no emotions?
No.
Is
True.
it,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
is it sometimes that your emotions are actually amplified?
Mm.
So when you meet a reflector or a manifestor or a projector, it's not that they have no energy. They can very much ride the energy in the room. They can very much overdo it because they can feel all the energy in the space and they're riding on that and amplifying it and experiencing it in their body. And then they get home and go, oh my God, I overrode what I actually have capacity for or energy for because that wasn't my energy.
Yeah.
And that can be really, really interesting. So, you know, there are hacks, you know, for anyone who doesn't have a defined sacral. Actually, sometimes they can work way longer. They can go and hang out in public, be in a coffee shop, you know, have loads more energy. It's just that they don't have their own rechargeable battery pack. And
Yeah.
whereas our sacral will say, as to whether or not there is capacity for something and whether
Yeah.
or not, like, we're done and it's bedtime, a lot of beings who don't have a defined center won't know it's time to stop, won't get that clear no in the same way. And
Yeah.
so that's the bit where I think the major difference, actually, for everybody in all walks of life, I think the most important thing is to start with your yes and no. If you can't say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no, don't ask me for any more information. Like, that's the bit to work on first.
Yeah, definitely. I see that in my projector friend actually.
Yeah.
She works so hard and is quite susceptible to burnout. And when I learned that she just doesn't have that on-off switch that you'd get from being grounded, defined root and defined sacral, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. I have an undefined root, and I can feel like, and today's actually a really good example of when we jumped on the call. You're like, how are you? Like, basically dysregulated because there's a never-ending to-do list that I haven't scheduled. And like, so the pressure, even though I've done so much embodiment work about it, like so much, I am, you know, my signature tool, the Valley Filter, is all about alignment and really working on that route. I didn't know it when I made it, but that's kind of what it's for, is all about releasing that pressure and coming back into your center and be grounding in your body. I could still get to the end of the day. Like last night, I got to 9 p.m. and was like, I'm hungry. What time is it? Oh, but I haven't finished everything on my list. And then replied to something to Sherry, and she was like, rest. I'm like, okay, thank you, bye. Sometimes I just need somebody to say,
Yeah.
stop. And so, it isn't just the sacral, it can absolutely be the root as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. The bit that we haven't answered that I would love an
Yeah.
insight to, and I'm just being nosy now because I can. as a generator,
Mm.
there's it's a level of mastery that you're here for. And so rather than it being about like hopping from one thing to the next, and there is a level of hopping from one thing to the next as a generator until you find your thing.
Yeah, and as a 6 as well, right? That's what I learned.
As a 6, yeah, definitely before
Experimenting with
30, you're
3.
going to have that kind of 3 experience of failing forward, right? And trying things. Absolutely, right? So that's there. And the question is, because it's not, we didn't go through your whole incarnation cross, but it's not instantly obvious, except it is. But it isn't instantly obvious how being a photographer is an expression of your purpose and an expression of your incarnation cross. And I would love to hear from you how you think, or like what your experience of your career or your purpose or your work and the
Sure.
incarnation cross overlap.
Yeah. So I was taking photos as a child. I can remember doing it like 7, 8 years old,
Yeah.
putting my hamster in the Cindy house on like the doll's laps and loads of little random scenarios.
Yeah.
And it was predominantly documentary photography to start with, and it was all about capturing that joy and emotion. Like I would say that my photos, the theme that is kind of interlaced through all of them, even when it is creative portraits or more posed portraits, it is about that joy. So that's why how I would say that it's there. Everything that I photograph is kind of going to put a smile on your face in a way, I suppose. And my understanding is that it's quite common for generators to find their thing quite early on and then to master. But I did get a bit sidetracked with various different other jobs along the way.
We did, and they are all the card we haven't touched on actually is your conscious earth 46,
Mhm.
which is this one. And the affirmation on it says, I revel in the pleasures available to me in my beautiful body. And that's what grounds you, is the bodiness, right? It's the pleasure of the body and the like, the aliveness of the body, the experience of being in a body, right? All of that. And bringing all of those things together, so bringing together like universal love and you seeing that in others and like pulling that out of them, but also the thing about when people have their photographs taken, instantly they become conscious of their body, right? And so your ability to help people land back in their body, or to not be as self-conscious, or to enjoy the experience, I think is really part of that.
Yeah.
I know that when we met many years ago and we said we weren't going to say the A word, but we both worked for or explored an experience with a network marketing company that liked, I mean, to me, the whole thing was about the white Mercedes, I have to say. Always about white Mercedes and the body, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the natural products and the way that it was empowering for um the the body. And 46 is the embodied empress, and it's all about enjoying being alive in a human body and being open to experience little winks from the universe. And gate 46 knows that every part of life is an opportunity for divine grace, and that the body is a vehicle for the soul. And in knowing that, it cultivates presence in its body and delights in synchronicity and seriousness, delight, ecstasy. And I feel like that really grounds the kind of universal love that you have, right? It's like it's in the body. It's like, let's make a tangible experience out of this universal love that I see. And then you've got your surfing baby, the joyful, that is the way that you do that. And then you've got the kind of inner retreat, that stillness that can capture a moment, right? That knows just the right moment
Yeah.
to take the photos. And I think like for me, seeing that whole picture and the whole story of mastering, yeah, being, because the branding of photography, the type of photography, like who you were photographing, that's changed over the years.
Yeah.
But the essence of what it is that you be and what it is that you're trying to capture, that hasn't changed since
Yeah.
that, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
I love these conversations because I feel like it gives another layer of like, tangibly, practically, what does it look like to take it from a piece of paper and a concept out into real life?
Yeah. And I also think, just to kind of touch on that beautiful analogy that you've just had of me and my work,
Yeah.
it really helps you, once you understand that, to stop with the comparison eye test as well, because I'm always going to take the photos in a way that it was literally written in the stars for me to do so. And the next person will for them as well, whatever it is that they're doing, that there's a place for everybody.
Yeah. And it removes competition
Yeah.
and means that I get to hang out with Sherry, or I get to hang out with Harriet, or I get to hang out with like all of these cool people that are my besties that happen to work in the same field. And in many places, people would call that competition. I'm like, why would I be in competition with the people who love the stuff that I love?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
thank you. I do not want. And so, I've had community over competition as a tagline since the beginning, before it was like a trendy thing,
Yeah.
because it's so important to me, right? Like I want to be able to hang out. And it's not like we try and create different offers. We just have different ways of bringing the same stuff out into the world.
Yeah,
And if you're open to it, then it can be really complementary, and it means you can work with other photographers, or you can work
exactly.
with all sorts of branding or whatever it is, without it being, yeah, competitive or judgy, or like taking us up into that mind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, should I?
Hanging out in the lack space, it's not a place for that, is it?
No, no. I love that you can see that, and I love watching your journey, and yeah, just the way that it's such a gentle design in many ways.
Yeah. And I think that understanding it has given me the confidence in the way that I approach photography as well.
Mm.
And because I find it easy as well. Like in the past, I would have thought, oh, well, maybe I need to be, adding in more lights, or, getting more equipment and mastering it more. And it's like, well, no, how about that, the beauty is in the simplification of the way that you do your photography.
And that's why someone would come to you rather than somebody else. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of photographers over the years, and if I could take my own, I would. I mean, let's not talk about these Virgo placements anymore. Um, but I need people who play with me.
Yeah. And I also think having the open emotions and open head, I
Mm.
very much see my shoots as a collaboration. So yes, I'm there to do the photos, but I don't have a very specific, this is how your picture's going to look. I don't feel like that's my job. I feel like my job's to tell whoever's message it is, whether
Mm.
that be that I'm documenting a moment for them, but specifically with the brand photography, it's
Mhm.
very much a collaboration. It's okay, tell me about you, your business mission, and
Yeah.
then let's come up with some ideas together
Mm.
collectively. It makes it so much more fun. But
And
having an open head and an open emotions means that I can pick up on that quite easily with whoever I'm speaking with.
well, and for me, that feels like a movement actually from, oh, now I want to pull out extra cards, but I'm aware of time. But that feels like a movement from documentary into artist.
Mm, yeah.
Because, the photographers that I tend to work with, they are people who have a level of artistry, but it is a collaboration in the same way as if I go to a tattoo artist, right? I go to a tattoo artist with a design or with an idea, and I tell them as best I can what it is that I want. And then at a certain point, I have to hand it over. There are tattooers and there are tattoo artists, right? And tattooers may be technically incredibly skilled, and they will replicate often traditional stuff that's been around for years and years and years, right? And then you get tattoo artists who will take something and they have a style. They have, you're like, oh, I can tell that that is that person's art. And I think it's similar with photographers, right? You get people who can take really good technical photographs, and you'll get what you asked for. And then there are other people where it's like, well, this is clearly your style and I'm coming to you for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that, yeah, the bit I was going to look up, by the way, was your north and south node, and I almost pulled it out earlier, but we can play another time. But
Oh,
it's an interesting thing to look at. Your north node is where you're going.
okay.
Your south node is where you've come from, and like what you know and what's easy for you.
And
And
where is that on the chart?
it's the little the little squiggle. So helpful, right? So there are two. There's one that's that way up and one that's that way up, and they're called the dragon's nose and the dragon's tail
Okay,
sometimes. So they look like that. And the one that looks like an N is your north node, and the one that looks like a U is your south node.
okay. I'm going to look that up straight after this.
um yeah, and again, mine is that the one that is 9? I think so, which is all about focusing on the details that matter. And again, that's been so helpful for me, of like, oh, okay, that's where I'm going. Stop focusing, like stop being on the other bits. No, I'm wrong. 4. So 9 is my moon, is the one under it. 4 is the forgiving philosopher. And it's the one that is actually on the box that's kind of greeny, bluey turquoise and has a girl holding scrolls on it. There are 64 cards. I'm shuffling as fast as I can. There are so many. I'm like, I can't, I'm not going to find it. And I actually redrew it just before it went to print with a girl on it instead of a woman. So this is my north node. This is where I'm going. And it says the logical solution is forgiveness. And the explanation, or I'm going to read it because I'll murder it. It's called The Forgiving Philosopher. Code 4 is all about the quest for wisdom and using logic to find a way through the chaos of being human. It loves to tinker with ideas and find solutions. It needs to understand, and as such, formulates theories, experiments with concepts, and comes up with answers. At a certain point, though, Code 4 stops needing to know and then finally understands. Happiness doesn't come from answers, it comes from forgiveness of ignorance. Code 4 knows that a state of not knowing keeps us growing. Growth is the goal, not answers. And knowing that has been so helpful, because I can tie myself up in, like, I love to think. I really enjoy mulling concepts around. It's how this whole thing came to be, because I layer concepts on top of each other until they make sense to me. But that's not valuable if I'm beating myself up because I don't know enough, or I'm not clever enough, or I haven't figured out the answer.
Definitely.
And understanding there is no answer, that I get to enjoy thinking until I'm driving myself mad with thinking, has been, yeah, really helpful. I don't know, a really helpful piece of information. Guide, map, marker point.
I love the way that you've written them as well, though. They're so poetic. They really land beautifully.
Yours is 18, and I did pull it out to talk to you about it. So 18 is the integrity. It's this one, because I was going to talk to you about it, and then we'll wrap up because we've talked for way too long. So yeah, that's 18. And if you are listening rather than watching, it is the integrity improver. Code 18 is all about improvement and wholeness, vigilant in challenging authority where it sees those in charge making mistakes and diminishing aliveness. Code 18 confronts because it sees the natural potential for perfection in all things. It's the therapist gate and supports people in times of crisis to come to terms with the past. Code 18 knows that what's been spoiled Code 18 knows what's been spoiled and desires to heal, correct, and optimize. So that's where you're going. And you're coming from, if I remember rightly, 17. Yeah, which is the omniscient opinion. And so that's much more knowing everything and creating solutions for people, right? And having a perspective on everything where you're like, I've looked into the future and I can see all the answers. And so this is the best perspective. Instead, you're moving from having an opinion to challenging actually a little bit more and insisting on integrity and understanding that integrity is not necessarily morals and ethics, but it's wholeness.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the journey you were saying earlier about people pleasing less and kind of like really landing in your own sun 25 and really landing and seeing everything from that place of universal love, which does not mean being a pushover, right? Like love actually has got I was going to say balls, but yeah, you know what I mean, right? It's got some kahunas. You've got like love has got some like no energy to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Definitely. And that's what when I said earlier on about kind of shying away from that love that I felt inside me because I saw it as a weakness in the past.
Yeah.
I don't see that anymore. I mean, many years ago I came to terms with that, but
Mm.
it's again, that's a systemic thing within society, isn't it? That, you need to be hard and cold in some situations, but yeah, not for me. Thanks very much.
I love it. And I love that this conversation has been different from the others and playful and light for me. And thank you just for letting me play with the cards, basically.
Oh, thank you for reading to me as well. Loved it.
Um, if people want to come and hang out with you, they want to experience your magic as a photographer, come talk about getting some photos done. Where's the best place for them to find you?
So I love to make friends on Facebook. So Charlie Brown on there. My website is charliebrownpics.uk. There's no co. My branding photography is BU Photo Shoots on Instagram. So yeah, come and find me.
I'm going to put all the links in the show notes so that it's really, really easy. And yeah, this has just been a really fun meandering around how you really are embodying your design. And I think this is the piece that's been really stand out to me in this episode, that it's an experiment, that it's not about, look at me, I've embodied my design, I'm done, which people don't necessarily realize that they're doing, but there's still sometimes that quality of like, I'm done, I did it right, look.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Always learning forever.
You and me both, right? And like you can't do a map right or wrong. It's just a map.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, my love. It's been
Yeah.
just an honor. Yeah.